January 1981. A dog drags a human arm from the woods outside Houston. Police find two decomposed bodies, a young couple, murdered, beside them, still alive, a baby girl. No one could identify the victims. No one could name the child. She'd be adopted and spend 41 years never knowing who she was, until DNA unraveled the mystery of baby Holly and what really happened to her parents. On January 6, 1981, a German shepherd trotted out of a dense, swampy tract off Wallaceville Road in Harris County, Texas, carrying a decomposed human arm. The discovery led police to a wooded area north of Houston, where they uncovered the remains of a young man and woman lying separately in heavy vegetation. Both deaths were officially ruled homicides. The man had been bound and beaten, the woman strangled. Yet, the defining contrast of this tragedy lay in what happened to their infant daughter. Baby Holly was found alive, surviving in the immediate aftermath of a double murder. But who were they? Severe decomposition and the limited forensic tools of the era left investigators at an immediate dead end. Fingerprints, dental records, and media appeals yielded no matches, forcing authorities to log the couple as unidentified Harris County does. Relatives in Florida had lost contact with the family in late 1980, but nationwide searches between 1981 and 1983 led nowhere. As one deputy recalled, without names, they were chasing ghosts. The case went cold, leaving an infant with no history. In late 1980, hundreds of miles away in Yuma, Arizona, two barefoot women wearing long white robes knocked on the back door of a Seventh-day Adventist church. They carried a 10-month-old baby girl. Along with the infant, the women presented a copy of her birth certificate and a handwritten note, reportedly from the father, surrendering custody. With no biological family in sight, the church took her in. Before long, a local family legally adopted the little girl, giving her a new name and a warm home. She grew up in Oklahoma, living an ordinary, full life. She went to school, played, and eventually raised 5 children of her own. For over 40 years, she had no idea that her biological parents had been murdered. Her original adoption files remained sealed under state law. Because there was no legal bridge to connect this beloved daughter to the unidentified infant in the Texas cold case, the police file in Harris County lay forgotten in a dusty drawer. As the decades slipped by, the girl lived her life in quiet peace, entirely separated from the dark secret of her past. The turnaround did not come from a sudden confession or a surprise eyewitness. It began quietly in July 2011, when Harris County forensic anthropologist Dr. Jennifer Love exhumed the remains of the unidentified couple. Under a federal grant, her team extracted bone fragments to construct modern DNA profiles. Traditional forensic DNA looks at short tandem repeats, or STRs. This method acts like a genetic barcode, designed to find an exact match in law enforcement databases, like CODIS. But without a pre-existing profile in the system, STR testing hits a dead end. To break the stalemate, investigators turn to single nucleotide polymorphism, or SNP testing, which analyzes hundreds of thousands of genetic variations. This allowed forensic genealogists Misty Gillis and Allison Peacock of Identifinders International to upload the profiles to public databases like GED Match and Family Tree DNA. These database searches do not provide an instant name or identify a killer. Instead, they reveal distant biological cousins, providing investigators with leads to build large family trees backward and forward through time. By October 2021, this genealogical work successfully identified the murdered couple as Dean and Tina Clouse. But the resolution of their names immediately unlocked a new, haunting realization. The young couple had a baby girl who was still unaccounted for, transforming a cold case homicide investigation into an active search for a missing child. The official confirmation finalized the identities of the two victims as Harold Dean Clouse Jr. and Tina Gale Lynn Clouse. The young married couple had moved from Volusia County, Florida, to the Lewisville, Texas area in the summer of 1980. Dean, just 21 years old, was a carpenter looking for steady work, while 17-year-old Tina was focused on her studies as a student. Their move was driven by a simple desire to build a stable life for their growing family. With their names restored, investigators re-examined the medical evidence from the 1981 autopsies. The records detailed a violent, targeted end. Dean had been bound and gagged, then killed by severe blunt force trauma to his head and torso. Tina had also been bound, her death officially ruled as manual strangulation. As police reconstructed the couple's final months, a distinct, investigative lead pointed toward their connection to a nomadic religious group. Members of this white-robed group had reportedly interacted with the couple before they disappeared, and some were even seen driving Dean's car back to Florida. However, this connection remains strictly an investigative lead rather than proof of any individual's guilt. No confirmed perpetrator, motive, or exact sequence of events has ever been established from these reports. Today, the homicide investigation remains open and unresolved. No suspects have been charged, and the files remain active. Yet even as the search for the killer stalled, the resolution of the parents' identities immediately refocused the entire investigation onto a single, living mystery. What had happened to baby Holly? On June 9, 2022, two detectives from the Texas Attorney General's Cold Case Unit walked into a quiet diner in Cushing, Oklahoma. They were looking for a 42-year-old mother of 5 named Holly Miller, who was working her shift. When they found her, they delivered a revelation that instantly shattered 4 decades of quiet anonymity. They revealed that she was actually Holly Marie Clouse, the missing infant from the 1981 Texas investigation, and that the young couple whose identities had just been restored were her biological parents. Holly's immediate response was disbelief. "Are you serious?" she asked the detectives. The shock of learning her true origin was quickly compounded by a devastating truth. Her biological parents had been murdered shortly before she was left at the Arizona church. In her first authorized public interview in late 2023, Holly shared the heavy emotional toll of this discovery. She reflected that it had eaten at her soul to realize her biological family had spent 40 years wondering what had happened to her, searching for a baby who had grown up entirely unaware of her own past. Within hours of the notification, investigators arranged a virtual meeting. For the first time, Holly looked at a screen and saw her biological grandmother, Donna Casasanta, and her aunts, Debbie Brooks and Tess Welch. While this meeting restored a lost family history, it also brought an agonizing contradiction. Holly found her family, but she also inherited the heavy burden of their unsolved tragedy. To this day, Holly has received no complete explanation of the killings. No suspects have been publicly named, and no one has been charged or convicted for the murders of Harold Dean Clouse Jr. and Tina Gale Lynn Clouse. For Holly, the breakthrough brought a restored identity and a long-awaited reunion with her family. But the ultimate question of criminal accountability remains entirely unanswered. Restoring a name from skeletal remains once thought unusable does more than update a police file. It rebuilds lost family histories. Holly's survival stands alone as a rare victory, independent of the science that eventually mapped her past. Yet, the technology that connected her to her biological family has clear limitations. Forensic genealogy depends entirely on the preservation of DNA, the availability of biological relatives, and the number of people participating in public databases. It also demands significant funding and specialized investigative resources, which many local departments cannot easily access. As these databases expand, they spark debates over personal privacy, consent, and the necessity of transparent investigative standards. For law enforcement, a genetic match provides a name, but it does not solve the crime. A forensic match can verify who a person was, but it cannot explain how they died, why they were targeted, or who is responsible. Knowing who the victims were does not reveal who caused their deaths. It merely establishes a new starting point for an active investigation. Across the United States, tens of thousands of unidentified remains lie in forensic storage, while hundreds of families of missing children still wait for answers. For these families, the gap between naming a victim and prosecuting a killer remains vast. A returned identity can heal a family line and restore broken relationships, but it does not write the final chapter. For the family of Dean and Tina Clouse, the truth of who they were has at last been reclaimed, but the scales of legal justice remain open and unfinished. Holly now has her name, but her parents' killer remains free. DNA can restore a stolen identity, but it cannot enforce justice. For thousands of families, science is just the beginning of a long road to the truth. Share your thoughts on this case below.